It has quite a. There goes. You're live, sir.
Okay, we're in our regular council meeting. Have an agenda item number 1, resolution 2023-09-20-01, naming Denton Navarro, Roca, Bernal, and Zek, PC as legal counsel and city attorney for the city of Wood Creek.
I apologize, Mayor Pro Tem. Can you please announce that you're calling the meeting to order and that we do the roll call and establishing the
Okay,
quorum? Thank you.
Gotcha. Yeah, I see that now. Thank you. All right, I'm calling the meeting to order. Please call the roll, Madam Secretary.
Mayor Jeff Rasco is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Brent Pulley,
Here.
Councilmember Linnea Bailey. Here. Councilmember Chris Grummer,
Here.
Councilmember Bob Hambrick,
Here.
Councilmember Deborah Hines.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, let's proceed with our regular agenda and taking up agenda item number 1, which is the resolution that I just went through a minute ago. Do we need a motion on that or how do we?
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to present resolution 2023-0920-01, naming Denton Navarro, Roca, Bernal, and Zek, PC as legal counsel and city attorney for the city of Wood Creek.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second discussion.
I think you have to say you move to approve.
I do move that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Okay, call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Brent Pulley,
Let me think about it. Aye.
Councilmember Linnea Bailey,
Aye.
Councilmember Chris Grummer,
Aye.
Councilmember Bob Hambrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Deborah Hines.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 2 is discussion and first reading of an ordinance implementing a temporary moratorium on the permitting of new short-term rental properties within the city of Wood Creek. How do we handle that?
I move that we discuss the first reading of an ordinance implementing a temporary moratorium on the permitting of a new short-term rental properties within the city of Wood Creek.
Do we need a motion if it's just a discussion item?
Well, you have to move to discuss. Otherwise, it dies.
I second.
Okay, well, we have a motion and second, whether we need it or not. So do we vote on that then or? Okay, so first of all, we got to have discussion and we can vote. So discussion, please. It's your motion.
I have concerns about this ordinance. One being that there are no written justifications expressed in it for the moratorium. I'm also concerned about how it names conditional use permits in the top. I'm concerned that it references the ordinance review committee and the planning and zoning commission based on the comments made earlier in that the planning and zoning commission did not actually recommend this moratorium in their report. And also the ordinance review committee has not been involved in this moratorium at all. So those items should be struck and reconsidered. Beyond that, I'm concerned about moving into a second reading on an item with these issues and without the justifications for the moratorium expressed. So I would like for our legal counsel to be given the time to adequately prepare for a future meeting, and if possible, for this item to be on the next council meeting, which is next week on Wednesday. No? Okay.
Sorry, closed.
Then it would need to be bumped again. And that's what I'm recommending council to consider.
So is that like an amended motion? Because you moved to
Well,
discuss it and then now you,
Yeah, we're just discussing it, and on item 3, I could make that motion, but that's my discussion of this item. Is I don't feel prepared to move into a second reading on this moratorium, given that it has no written justifications that are necessary under chapter 212, and that it has clear errors and potential issues with the use of the conditional use permit, because in our meeting, we talked about whether this was about the permit, as in the noun of a permit, or the verb of allowing, permitting, right? And so that needs to be better clarified, what this moratorium is actually addressing. And I would like for the opportunity of our legal counsel to at least adequately prepare for the discussion of this topic for our city in general.
Further discussion, Chris?
I would like to add,
I would like to add, in addition to that, I would like our new city council to possibly rewrite this with those suggestions so that it comes back to us. That's because I agree, there's some problems on this particular document that needs to be corrected before it is brought back to us.
Okay, so we're discussing it. We have specific requests to modify the proposed ordinance. How do we accomplish that? Do we just instruct you now to make those changes? Do we need an amended motion? What's the best way to do what these guys are suggesting? Chris, what are you doing? Want to talk?
Well, this is a discussion item.
But you guys have specific recommendations. Do you want those carried out or not? If so, how do we carry them out?
I think we can do it on. That's a good question to ask.
That's what I'm asking.
I know. I was looking at item 3 thinking we could possibly do it, but
See what she says. Council, do you have any thoughts on that?
So I apologize. I was conferring with city manager to make sure I understood. So you can give direction to staff or council at any point in time without a formal vote. If there is a consensus of the council, or if you want to vote, you can vote, but it's not formal action because you are simply voting on the direction you're going to give to staff or council to carry out and bring back what you want to see. But for purposes of what's on the table, we have a motion and a second I'm assuming under Roberts, to discuss, but not to approve. Is that correct?
correct.
Okay, so then that could be that still needs a vote for that motion and second, or do we just want to let it die for lack of a vote?
Okay, what
That's kind
about
of where I'm confused, and I
we need a
apologize.
vote on giving you instructions, or can we just say, here's the changes we'd like to see?
Unless we don't have a consensus, or we have changes that are from each individual council member that may or may not be able to consistently be inserted. I would rather you just tell us, we will go work with staff to come back with an ordinance that's going to meet 212 based on the direction we're given. And Charlie can bring that back, have that conversation with you on why he's put in there what he's put in there, and his opinion on that at the next meeting.
Do you have adequate instruction now if we do have a consensus, or do you need an email from us, or how would you accomplish that?
I'm going to rely on the city manager
Okay,
to have, if he needs to have any follow-up individually, he certainly can, but to provide us that guidance based
okay.
on your direction. That work?
So any other comments and changes that you guys would like to see to this particular ordinance? Anybody?
If I could, seems like there's no specific changes made at this point. We've talked about how it's deficient rather than what we actually want. So if what we're talking about is bringing this back after our city attorney and the manager get together and talk about these specific things, then at that point we'll have some possible specific changes to make.
Okay,
Can I recommend maybe giving staff and the new legal counsel, and I think Mr. Hambrick's or Councilmember Hambrick's explanation was pretty good. Let us get with legal counsel, come up with something, bring it back to you with kind of their blessing and everything like that, and then you can say, yes, but we want to add this or whatever. I believe we have a good idea what is involved, but it will come to you for any further changes that we may have overlooked or that you want to include in that. Is that applicable.
I
to
think,
that?
but I think you got specific guidance by pretty much consensus from council that you can start working on. And if you need that emailed to you, so, you know, that way you know exactly.
I think we're good on
Okay,
what we're looking after and
Okay.
going forward, and then we'll bring back moratorium again. Is that correct? You want a moratorium to come back again?
it has to. We have a second
Okay.
reading scheduled that we're going to.
I think we should have a first reading because what we've established is this one is deficient in justifications. There are written justifications that are necessary for this that are not present.
So we start from scratch and we start the process all over.
Why would we start the process all over? I
We
mean, this is the purpose of a first reading is we can make adjustments, right? And then come back for a second reading and hopefully it's ready because we're just pushing it back.
Well, if I may,
Go ahead.
um,
Thank you.
I think that what Councilmember Hines is referring to is, I don't know that we have to have a whole new public hearing and start that part of the process, because we've had a public hearing on this. It's just that we're changing this, but I don't. To read this here when it's not ready and complete, I would prefer a 2 readings on one that is secure and complete and has all the concerns and all the requirements built into the ordinance, and then have a second reading of that. Where I wouldn't consider this a first reading because it doesn't have the parts it needs yet.
So I agree that there are some substantive changes that are going to be coming about, and that is typically a concern that we want to ensure is addressed, that the public has had an opportunity to review, especially an ordinance, the substance and know who it's going to apply to and how it's going to apply. But I would, and this is just a recommendation, you can ignore it. I would just recommend we table the item until the next meeting, or identify the meeting you want it to come back at. And then it comes back in the form or fashion you're looking for. And you've got that notice in your agenda. We've had our public hearing. We've not taken any action on anything that is not what you want to adopt. And then you can proceed at that point.
So
Just one recommendation.
Go ahead.
to get us there through Robert's rules, and we've made a motion to discuss, and we've had a second. In that discussion, I could make a motion to table.
I don't believe I'm your parliamentarian. Do you have a parliamentarian?
It's
No.
usually me.
Okay, so
And he don't know.
No, and so I
so
just
you
want to,
mean a motion to table, I believe under Robert's rules can be an intervening motion.
Okay,
I move that we table this item until,
Well, they said that the next meeting is not a possibility, so it would be
Yeah.
the first meeting of October.
The first meeting would, the first meeting would be October 11th, or you could do, it'd be either October 11th or October 25th.
and does that give either of those dates have a preference for council regarding the documents?
my thinking is if it's coming back on, the next time is going to be another first reading, then we ought to do it on the 11th and we can have the second reading on the 25th.
Okay, Great. Great. I move that we table this item until October
11.
11th, council meeting.
Okay, any further discussion? Ready to vote?
Councilmember Linnea Bailey,
Aye.
Councilmember Chris Grummer,
Aye.
Councilmember Bob Hambrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Deborah Hines.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Brent Foley.
Aye.
I move that we adjourn.
Oh, we got one more.
No.
We gotta still schedule a second reading on the
We tabled it.
25th. We table it to the 11th, but we can still have the second reading on the 25th, right?
Right.
I believe once you table an item, it's no longer up for discussion. But that was.
That was number 2.
If nobody makes a motion, it just dies and y'all don't make any recommendation and just, we go on.
Well, I mean, don't we want a second reading on the 25th or not? I mean, I mean, this is starting to look like we're just messing around, man. I mean,
I make a motion that we have the second reading on the 25th, if that is possible, as it appears to be necessary.
okay,
Second.
all right, discussion.
My concern with that is when we have preemptively scheduled meetings and then have to cancel them, that also has the wrong look. And if it's determined that proceeding with a moratorium is not necessary based on legal counsel in October 11th, because they are going to, look at this STR issue from a macro lens and maybe potentially come back with other recommendations. I mean, I guess we can just cancel the second reading as easily, but that was why I was hesitant to move forward with preemptively scheduling a meeting on something that we have not reviewed yet.
Right, I hear you. And you're saying we may not need it at all if they come to the conclusion that our current ordinance is okay. The problem is these have to be scheduled so far apparently in advance. So if we don't grab the date, then we may end up in November, if we do need a second reading. That's what my concern is. I mean, I'd rather get the date and not need it than need it not to have the date, I think. I mean, I don't know. I understand your messaging concern, but I don't know. Well, we got a motion and a second. Further discussion. Chris?
I have a question.
Okay.
What kind of notices are required for the second reading? What is the financial impact of that? Would we be potentially putting, excessively spending money unnecessarily if we don't move forward with the second reading?
So just legally, I would prefer to have the opportunity to review this and review your past practices to determine whether or not your practice is to have 2 readings on this type of ordinance. I don't know that there's any additional costs or expenses required. But I'd rather allow us the opportunity to review that and then weigh in on that at the next meeting instead of forcing the council to have that. So I would respectfully request you vote the motion down.
Okay, so you would suggest we don't schedule in for the 25th? Okay,
Make that easier, I can withdraw the motion.
okay. I'm not sure I understand that logic, but what if we decide we do need a second reading, then what? We got to set it in November? I mean, isn't there like a time issue here?
So being relatively new, I am not sure how you do first and second readings. Those are typically consecutive meetings unless there is a reason it cannot be. So the 11th and 25th would be naturally occurring consecutive meetings if you voted on a first reading, and if a second reading was required. I have no idea why a city manager would not be able to put that on October 25th.
Okay. So you're saying we don't really necessarily need a vote for that if we decide we need it, the manager can go ahead and set it. Okay,
Well, I guess. He can't because he doesn't establish your agendas. So you are requesting, council member can put it on at their request.
okay. I just
Okay,
understood
thank you.
from Kevin, there was like you had to have 30 days or something between them. That's why I was worried about the timing of it, that we need to grab that date now, but if that's not an issue, then okay.
But I don't believe our code of ordinances specifically for such a thing requires a second reading to begin with. So I think we're just being very thoughtful by having to. So I don't think there's
Okay.
built-in requirements for us to do it.
Okay.
Requirements on, I believe I believe you've met those already though, for the purposes of the public hearing for the moratorium. So those have been met.
Okay. So you're comfortable in the next reading will be October 11 and then not scheduling anything on the 25th yet?
Correct.
Okay,
Allowing y'all that opportunity at that meeting.
gotcha. So Bob, what do you want to do?
I already
Withdraw the motion?
drew the motion.
Okay.
Well,
Who wants to speak?
yeah.
Oh, Lene, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I
didn't
just
see you
wanted
over there.
to point out, if we have the first reading on today, the 9th, and the next one on October the 25th, that's not 2 consecutive meetings.
Table this one for tonight.
No, but your previous comment was normally the first reading and then on a consecutive council meeting. And this one was not scheduled that way.
Correct, but since we've tabled it, it will come back on the 11th as a first reading. And
Right.
so then the meeting after that, for the 25th, yeah, this item 3 was not proposed as consecutive. And I would let city manager speak to that, but
Okay.
typically they come consecutively unless there's an issue with an agenda, either like you're saying it's full or you're not going to have, certain people want to participate and they may not be present at a meeting and they've asked it to be bumped.
Okay, so you've withdrawn your motion. Any other discussion? There's really nothing to, I guess, on the table at this point, so.
Well, could I be the parliamentarian for the
Well,
moment?
sure.
So a council member has made a motion and a council member seconded it, and we've had discussion. So we actually should vote it down versus.
Okay,
We did not restate it, so it doesn't have to be voted on.
True, true.
All right.
see, I did that on purpose.
Yeah.
I did that on purpose, Chris. I'm thinking way ahead.
I second motion to adjourn.
All right, we're adjourned.
Y'all, you're being some parliamentarian.
Yeah, man.
Good job.
Good job for not
Yeah.
restating that.
Jeez, no kidding. I knew what I was doing.
Running your second meeting.